The Curse of Black Agnes. Hey everyone, I'm Jack Carter, and I'm back with another terrifying story. If you think you've seen horror, think again, because what my team and I encountered in Scotland still haunts us to this day. It all started with a local legend. In a remote graveyard near Edinburgh, there's a statue known as Black Agnes, a life-size stone figure, with a haunting grin. The legend says that anyone who sits on its lap at midnight is cursed. Some say the statue moves when no one's looking. Others claim its expression changes over time. Skeptics laugh it off, but after what happened to us, I'm telling you now, this legend is real. Cut to the sound of footsteps crunching over gravel. A cold wind blows. We arrived just before midnight. The place was deathly quiet, the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're being watched. And then we saw it. Black Agnes. There it was. A weathered stone figure seated like a king on a throne, its sunken eyes staring straight ahead. Even in the dim moonlight, its grin looked unnatural, as if frozen in the middle of some sick joke. I had read about the curse, but Mark, our biggest skeptic, laughed it off. Cut to Mark smirking at the camera, brushing dust off the statue's knee. "Just a statue," he said. And before we could stop him, he sat down. The sound of static. The air shifts. Everything goes silent. The temperature dropped instantly. Our cameras glitched. I felt this awful pressure, like something heavy was pressing against my chest. And then, Mark screamed. His face twisted in pain, his breathing ragged. He clutched his chest like something was inside him, something we couldn't see. "Something's inside me," he gasped before collapsing onto the cold ground. Distorted static fades in. A faint, eerie whisper echoes before the sound of slow, unsteady breathing takes over. We rushed Mark to the hospital. His skin was ice cold, his pulse weak. For nearly 5 minutes, he had no heartbeat. Then, without explanation, he woke up. But something was wrong. His eyes weren't the same. The Mark we knew was gone. His voice was off, lower, almost hollow. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. Something he shouldn't have known. A brief moment of silence, followed by distorted audio, as Mark whispers something unintelligible. The nightmare started that night. Mark wouldn't sleep. He'd pace his room, muttering to himself in a language none of us understood. The air in his room was always freezing, no matter how high the heat was. We set up cameras to monitor him, and that's when we saw it. Cut to flickering security footage. Mark sitting upright in bed, whispering to something unseen. Then, a shadow moves behind him. The recordings captured things we couldn't explain. Shadows stretching unnaturally, whispers on the audio, and once, a figure standing at the foot of his bed. A dark silhouette, its grinning face eerily familiar. Black Agnes, and then just like that, Mark disappeared. No sign of forced entry. No footprints. Just an empty room, and the faint sound of laughter caught on our last recording. The sound of a tape rewinding, followed by distorted laughter. Desperate for answers, we returned to the graveyard. We were ready to destroy the statue, but when we got there, Black Agnes was gone. No trace, no explanation, just vanished. What took Mark? What was the entity inside that statue? We may never know. But if you ever find yourself near Black Agnes, listen to my warning. Don't sit on its lap. Don't look at it for too long. And never ever visit at midnight. A long, heavy silence. Then a final whisper, soft but unmistakable, laughter in the dark. I'm Jack Carter, and that's the last time I'll ever go looking for a legend. But if you want to hear more terrifying encounters, subscribe.